All right, we are back. We've got Chi-Town Lowdown. We're covering a few topics here in terms of what's transpired since last week. Obviously, a lot of the new coaching hires, and Tom's going to take us into that, looking at some free agency stuff as well. But Tom, you can go ahead with that coach talk that you wanted to get into.
Yeah, so we are Chicago Bears podcast first. So a couple facts here. What we got? Obviously, Ben Johnson, our offensive coordinator or our head coach. Wardo and I talked about it last week. Great hire, top of the market guy. Glad we got him. So now we're kind of seeing what his mind in terms of his coaching staff will be. So we got Dennis Allen as a defensive coordinator, Declan Doyle as the offensive coordinator. We're retaining Richard Hightower as the special teams, and this is kind of what I was. We don't have an offensive line coach yet, and I think that's a big point. We need to get one, and we're interviewing people. Ohio State line coach, offensive line coach. I heard Notre Dame's offensive line coach.
Wisconsin.
So, I don't know, but
I think Wisconsin.
Yeah. So those are what's in place right now. What do you guys think?
So real quick, feels good to have us all back.
Yeah.
On the four tiles here. I feel like it's been like a month since we've all been here together. Everybody, I don't know, Jesse and I had kind of probably the same things, sickness. Tom, sounds like you're getting over something. Wargo's been holding it down for us while everybody's just recuperating. Thanks, Wargs. Yeah, so Tom obviously just touched on the big names there with the coaching carousel, and obviously I haven't been on since the Ben Johnson hire. Feels like they got the guy that they wanted, right? Going back to even last offseason, that feels good. It feels good as a Bears fan to get. It doesn't matter if it's a coach, a head coach, a coordinator, a player, like whatever, front office person. When the Bears actually get the person that it's like, oh, that's who everybody was like, this is who they should get. It feels like, okay, good job there. I'm not going to allow myself to get out of control.
No.
I was going to say, I do have a question in turn. Like, the Bears have won the offseason 3 years in a row.
Freaking say that, dude.
For that exact reason, it's just like there's a level of, hesitation, right?
But there was a lot of firsts. It's a lot of firsts that we haven't seen. Paying a head coach a lot of money, the most sought after head coach that everybody wants. We haven't done that. So
yeah. And just some of the conversation that I'd seen regarding the Johnson hire. I don't know if you guys had heard something similar, but it was there was some like rumors going around that Poles didn't necessarily want to get Johnson because he was a little intimidated, and vice versa. It seemed like Johnson wanted, kind of final say and a little more leeway as it related to the GM front of the office type of stuff. After the hire occurred, I started hearing other rumors saying like that was those two playing a game with the media in the sense that like they were communicating and almost letting their own camps put that information out to kind of throw some of the other teams that may be for a head coach off that trail. If I don't think the Bears or anyone associated with the Bears is smart enough to set up some sort of media diversion like that. But if they did, good for them. It certainly seemed like, obviously Johnson seemed excited in kind of his opening press conference. It seems like Poles is happy. Obviously, they're not going to be like, we're neither one of us really too excited about this whole thing. We don't really like one another. Obviously, that's not going to be what's portrayed, but I'm happy right now. In terms of some of the other hires, the OC decision is interesting. Guy younger than myself. is taking over in that role. And
one thing on the Ben Johnson, did you happen to see his agent go on 670 The Score?
I did not.
He's the best process I've seen in a heck of a long time.
Yeah, I did see that headline.
That's good, but he's probably just.
That could be another media diversion.
No, I think
it's like, what did they?
His guy already got a huge amount of money. He's getting paid. He's like, good job. So, anyways.
Yeah, but again, going back to the OC, Declan Doyle, obviously he's not calling plays. Like I was kind of, as most people were, like, who the hell is this guy? I mean, ultimately, the OC position for this team right now it's probably a great opportunity for him to sit and learn and get some experience.
I do like that he was the Broncos tight end coach.
Correct.
Under Sean Payton. I know a lot of people don't like Sean Payton, but he does have a distinct type of leading a football team.
Yeah.
I think that's neat for him being under that for 2 years, and he had Bo Nix as his rookie this year. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that dynamic, that's a good point, Tom, in terms of the Bo Nix dynamic is you just spent a year in a room with not necessarily in a room, but in a building with a rookie quarterback who had an above average year and did a lot better than a lot of people expected. So maybe what he had, seen in terms of the Broncos relationship with Nix last year could be beneficial to Caleb and the Bears this upcoming year. That could be maybe one of the selling points for him as the OC to this staff and to Ben Johnson. Dennis Allen, I think, is big. It's like they did this kind of
the Eberflus switch.
Well, I mean, looking at the OCDC, like they went with the relative unknown and inexperienced guy.
Oh yeah.
And then they go the exact opposite with the DC and a guy that's got head coaching experience in 2 different places. And
we're talking about the 670. I think it was 670 The Score. They were talking about the differences between Eberflus and Allen, and it's like Eberflus is like from the tree of zone coverage and like cover 2, and like Dennis Allen is like man to man, a little bit more aggressive, like likes to change, personnel, likes to have
like a strong like nickel blitz and stuff, or what they say.
I'm not sure.
There's like a certain position in the secondary that he likes to like have like a very competent player in. I forget.
Yeah, I just think that it's gonna be we're gonna see a different Bears team, no matter good or bad. I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not high on talent. Like that's much is apparent. I mean, that's why we were so lofty on our expectations for this coming year. Sure, we had injuries not really help us out in terms of the offensive line, but you can't continue to have that be a recurring excuse. You can use that excuse here and there, but like as long as I've been a Bears fan, I know that we're not getting in the end zone. Like our red zone offense is so bad, just in terms of we don't have like an offensive line that can push guys down there. Like if we don't get a first down inside of the 5-yard line, like, if we're coming from the 15, it's like, hey, we might score on this one. Like we've got 4 plays to get in the end zone from that close. Like
I kind of like that he, like man to man, we have an absolute, a top, 10 cornerback, and it'd be nice to isolate. He put him on their top receiver, top
10,
top 5, maybe top
5. Yeah, I don't want to, I wasn't sure, but he's great. He's a great cornerback. We could put him on their best receiver, and then that could shut. I don't know, just a different way of playing.
Yeah, I'm excited for all the new hires. I too haven't been on since Ben Johnson was hired. I was under the weather last week, but the pod before that, we were talking coaching odds, and it was kind of up in the air between Ben Johnson and Mike McCarthy were the favorites at that time. I am very pleased that we came out of the situation with Ben Johnson rather than Mike McCarthy, as I'm sure most people in Chicago are. And we talked about the expectations going into that, how the Bears, they've let us down so many times that we were already kind of accepting McCarthy was going to be the guy. So it makes you think maybe
I did. I was confident it was McCarthy, dude. Like in my mind, I convinced myself.
Yeah, but it makes you think maybe this time around things will be a little bit different, right? And we had a very, very similar conversation last year around this time when the Bears season was over about having obviously a great draft coming up with the number 1 and the number 9 picks and what we're going to be able to do with that, especially with the talent like Caleb coming out. And obviously we were able to secure him in the draft. And, that led to some pretty lofty expectations looking back. I think our win-loss preseason totals were at 7.5 or 8.5. And obviously we fell pretty far short of both of those numbers.
8.5.
Yeah. And so
that's crazy looking back, like how bad our season was.
I think Denver's was like 4.5.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about this cycle, this coaching cycle in terms of hiring in comparison to the last one with Eberflus. And I feel, Eberflus was the defensive coordinator with Indianapolis at the time. They had a great defense, so it wasn't necessarily an out of left field hire, but I don't think he was the guy during that cycle. And I don't think the roster was quite comparable to the current roster that we have now. So maybe that was a reason that we were able to secure Ben Johnson, was the types of guys that we have on this team. And the the promise that he can come in, he can coach these guys the way he knows how, and turn this into a competitive team in January and hopefully into February rather quickly, right? So, and I think another thing that about this is kind of he was like the obvious pick, and if it was anybody else, then the Bears are going to be able to hold that over the heads of Ryan Poles and McCaskey. And since they went out and got Ben Johnson, now they're some of that. If this ends up not working out, their hands are kind of washed clean, right? They're going to say, "Look, we got the guy. We gave him autonomy to bring in his coordinators." So I think the expectations are going to be even higher going into next season than they were coming into this season, which, when you're a team that won 5 games, how high can the expectations really be, right? But with Caleb at the helm, and we still got some great pieces on defense. Offensively, same kind of story there. I think we need to address the line on both sides of the ball. The backfield, I don't think we can carry on with DeAndre Swift. We got to get somebody else back there.
Genty.
Could be Genty. I think we'll probably look in the trenches for that top 10 pick.
Yeah.
For that number 10 pick.
Yeah.
And maybe Poles will do some. I'm sure he'll do some investigating about what other teams see and value for that pick. One thing we touched on before we went live was the free agency market in terms of some of the offensive linemen that are going to be out there. One name that's making some waves, who's going to be playing in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, is Trey Smith. Those are the types of guys.
Imagine him and Darnell Wright on the right side of our line.
What's wrong with Nate Davis?
Yeah. But, I feel like the free agency is such it has to be a big part of – I mean, obviously, one of the biggest free agent busts that we had it wasn't huge, but Gerald Everett sucked. How many catches do you think he had? 10? you can
They're
have
trying to
more.
feed him early in the year, but it was brutal to watch.
Yeah, but you know, an offensive line like Trey, just Trey.
Trey Smith.
Thank you, good thing. Like he is a well-known top of the line offensive lineman. That would be huge. Sorry, I cut you off, but like it's. I was gonna say also like it's, you know, everybody's saying to get the draft, you know, get huge guys and great offensive linemen, defensive linemen in the draft. Yeah, but they don't have experience. This guy has some experience, a lot of experience playing under Andy Reid. Like he's been in the league for what, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that'd be a crucial aspect to our offensive line if we had, if we could get him. I think that the Chiefs could obviously retain him, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, a couple other coaching hires that we had.
Huh?
Can they afford to retain him?
Yeah. Right.
From the articles that I read, that if they were to keep him, they would franchise tag him, but it didn't sound like they wanted to do that. But you don't know until the off season's here.
They need
offensive line. Well do that.
So.
That's tough.
Couple other guys that we hired are Ben Johnson added to the coaching staff. Antoine Randall came over with him from Detroit. He's going to be the assistant head coach and the wide receivers coach. You know, had a great career, won a Super Bowl. I did not know this, but he was actually drafted by the Cubs out of high school in 1997, but elected to play football at Indiana and then was drafted by the Steelers in 2002. Al Harris, longtime Green Bay Packer defensive back. He's coming over from Dallas as the defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach. And we touched on the coordinators already, but you know, it seems like Ben's constructing a good staff, right? Guys that have been in the league, former players, other than this Declan Doyle. I don't think Dennis Allen was in the league, but you know, that's what you want to see. You want to see guys that come in, can relate to the players, that have had success in those positions and have had success coaching in other organizations as well. So I'm liking what I'm seeing. Like Luke, I'm not getting my hopes up too much, but I think there's a lot of promise. You know, there's a lot of opportunity in free agency and in the draft, and then a lot of runway to implement a culture and develop the players that we've currently got and get them playing some championship football. So feeling good.
How good?
Pretty good. I think next year we eclipse.
We got a double, right? We got
I think it's the 5-win mark.
Nine wins next year. 9 wins at least.
So 8.5. You're taking the over.
Yes, but I'm biased. I would have taken the over last. You know, obviously, I would have taken the over last year, and you saw how that worked out. So,
yeah,
we were too high last year.
9 wins would be. I don't know. That'd be good.
Well, before
we could eclipse that even, but
I mean, the next thing that I think that is you want to look at looking ahead with the team as a whole is obviously we now have some clarity with the front office with the coaching staff, right? Like there's a few hires that are still going to be made and some of the lower ranking sort of positions within the coaching staff, whatever those might be. But I think the other half of this equation it makes complete sense, is the players on the field, right? And what this team's going to look like from a roster standpoint next year. We kind of touched on some of this stuff prior to the show beginning, but obviously this was a year where we saw the front office bring in, I don't want to say more than usual, but a lot of names that you kind of expected to be short-term rentals, right? So we're looking at guys like Keenan Allen, most likely moving on next year. That's not definitive, but I just think based on age,
Someone will
and
probably pay him what we
yeah, and I think he showed, like Jesse had pointed out, because I was kind of dismissive about it, with Allen specifically, in saying that I don't think he's going to be there. That strictly comes from a place of age and what this team wants to do.
I think you threw the word fat out there.
Fat, yes.
Injury prone.
He actually, I mean, he seemed fairly healthy this year.
Yeah, except for that
the foot, right?
The beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, it seemed like he was on the field. He did seem bigger.
Fat.
You got to body up those boys down in the red zone.
But
some
of the other names that I had touched on with the guys prior to starting were Tevin Jenkins. Obviously not. He was someone that we drafted and were electing not to, at the present moment, sign to a second contract, right? It's looking like Tevin's probably going to leave. Now, he is listed as one of the top guards in terms of a free agent going into the offseason. So, as a Bears fan, Tevin, there had been times when Tevin looked like he was a viable option, and then there's been other times where it's like, Tevin, what the hell's going on, right? I think games this year. And
I'm not sure it's time to move on from Tevin personally. I think
it depends.
I'm with you, Jesse. I think I like him.
Well, we're not going to get anything for him, right? He's not played any games. So, like, what team is going to shell out big bucks to – I mean, I don't think it's going to be crazy to retain him.
Right, yeah.
I don't like him, though.
I mean, in terms of PFF, he's the third best available guard in free agency. So someone is going to make him an offer. Whether the Bears are in the market for considering him as to, is this guy better than Trey Smith?
I think it depends on Ben Johnson's kind of feel for him, what he wants in his offense.
Absolutely. And that goes back to the original point I was trying to make is I think this team could look different than what no shit. The team's going to look different, guys. That's why. But if you look at what the Lions offense looked like versus the Bears, the Lions were one of those teams kind of similar to the Bills in the sense that they were kind of cutting edge in these last couple of years. And I'm sure Ben Johnson had a huge part in implementing an offense like this where they're rolling out a sixth offensive lineman a lot of times. They're really forcing the issue with the run game to open up play action for a guy like Jared Goff. And I'm talking specifically about what Johnson's been doing in Detroit the last few years. Now, he's already made it a point to say, hey, I'm not just going to take the offense we're running in Detroit and come and run that here in Chicago, which is great to hear because the point he was making was you have to be mindful of the players that you have in the locker room already. You can't just expect guys who have different skills and strengths to just run an offense that worked well somewhere else with other players, right? So it's good to know we've got a coach that has a half a brain because it's like what I'm saying is not rocket science, right? Like but it seems like in years past, we've had a coaching staff that was just like, well, this is my system. It's like, hey, bud, your system's shit. And these guys can't play at all. So let's try and figure something out here.
I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here and say, but if you're coming from a system where the offense is one of the most efficient the league has ever seen, we don't necessarily need to strip it down completely and start from the beginning, right? I mean, aren't we getting a little bit too cute if we're trying to do that? And aren't we maybe thinking that we're a little smarter than we really are? I mean, let's humble ourselves a little bit and understand that I've had success, of course, in the league, but that doesn't mean that I can throw out everything I know and build it up from the beginning and it's going to be just as good or if not better than it was, right?
I think he was just getting the point across that, like Luke said, it's all about the personnel. Like he obviously might still have a lot of the same concept.
I think it's somewhere in between what you're saying, Tom, and what Jesse's just touched on. And it's important to just be conscious of that, right? It's not like hey, I don't have my guys that I had in Detroit. We're going to do it different now. And it's also, like Jesse's saying, it's also like, hey, we were pretty freaking good there. So, like, we're going to take some of it, and we're going to take the pieces that fit with these guys, and we're going to implement those things. But it's not going to look the exact same. Like, Caleb is not Jared Goff. I mean, it all centers around the quarterback as much currently. Like, Jared is he's become a very good play action quarterback, and he was really good at that in Detroit. And it'd be interesting to see what he looks like without Ben Johnson and the offense they've been running the last years. That's not Caleb, not traditionally at least. I'm not saying he can't do those things, but Caleb is a shot. I mean, throughout his career up until this point, and I mean, it was a little bit different for him this year in Chicago, but he's traditionally sat in shotgun, and spread the had an offense where you're spreading the defense out. That's not necessarily what you're looking at when you're the guy that is now your offensive coordinator was trotting out 6 offensive linemen, more than most teams in the league the last couple of years. So the point I'm trying to make is I was happy to hear Johnson make those comments about the offense and like understanding, one, you can't just bring the entire playbook over and just expect it to work. But also, like Jesse's pointing out, don't try and reinvent the wheel, right? Like you had a good thing going there in Detroit. Build the roster up, since the front office is giving you the freedom to kind of have that decision-making ability with polls and with the rest of the front office to go get guys in free agency. We had also kind of touched on this, that I don't think we're at the time, depending on where you look and how well you understand the NFL cap situation. The Bears are sitting in a pretty good spot. I've seen like we're top 3. I've seen we're top 5.
Top 5, right.
We've got money to spend. Is the point. Like we're up towards the top. So hopefully what we will see is an active team in free agency. Obviously, offensive line needs to be addressed. You've got DJ and Rome at wide receiver, maybe Keenan Allen, but most likely there's going to be an opening there at wide receiver.
Travis Scott's not the guy, not Travis.
Yeah,
Scott could be the guy.
Tyler Scott's probably not the answer there. Looking at the top free agents at wide receiver this offseason, you got Higgins. Higgins is probably out of the question. If we didn't have DJ, maybe Higgins. But you're looking, in my opinion, looking at the list here, once you get down into maybe a short-term contract with a guy like Amari Cooper or DeAndre Hopkins is up with the Chiefs. So is Marquise Brown after this year. Darius Slayton from New York, right? Got names like that, or possibly looking in the draft. Because, I mean, there's going to need to be a kind of a third guy there.
I think you can get better value for D-Hop than you could for re-signing Keenan?
I would say they're probably going to be comparable. In terms of the list I'm looking at via PFF, that's like they're comparable in terms of where they're ranked. I think Hopkins is the 6th. I'm sorry, the 5th rated available free agent wide receiver. Keenan's 8th. Okay. So, I mean, they're both on that list, but that's kind of up in the air. Again, Jesse had pointed out, or maybe it was you, Wargo, or Tom, I can't remember. Obviously, the trenches is where we need to focus. Don't be afraid to go out and spend some money on a guy like Tevin Jenkins or help me out, Smith.
Trey Smith, yeah.
Trey Smith from Kansas City. Like, it's not sexy to go out and spend a lot of money on an offensive lineman, especially an interior offensive lineman. But that's where this team.
I think in this instance, it kind of is.
Yeah, it is. Addressing your issues is very sexy, right? It doesn't. We don't have to go and like DeAndre Swift's getting paid the same amount of money as Derrick Henry right now. Like, that was a mistake. Don't do this shit again in this offseason. Don't go out and pay another running back money that running backs don't make right now in the league. Now, when Saquon, sees a little bump and we see the market reset, we can reassess these contracts. But that was a mistake last year. Paying Kevin Byard a bunch of money, an aging safety, that's a mistake. Like, address the positions that the league values, right? Like, let's be smart. Like, and it was partially like, I admit some fault in my own expectations last year. I was excited when I saw Keenan's name, and like, Byard's a name that I recognize. Like, okay, that's cool. DeAndre Swift coming off a good year with Philly. Byard had a decent year. Swift was honestly statistically not bad. Like, he can stick around and still be a valuable piece of the offense. They probably need somebody to complement him, because the guys that were behind him this year were just Roshan there's not a lot of pop there. Homer's obviously gone.
Swift's yards before contact guy. Like, he's got to hit the hole with speed, and he didn't provide that.
As soon as somebody gets a finger on him, he's going down. But I mean, there's plenty of guys that can succeed like that. Like, he can be an explosive weapon. They just need to find other pieces to supplement that. But
we gotta go big on the draft. We gotta hit some pieces on the draft.
It's crazy. We gave David Montgomery away for free.
I'm okay with that. Not for free. Probably not great. I'm okay with letting him go, but I don't remember what the value was.
Did his contract expire, and then we just didn't re-sign him?
Yeah. Probably should have re-signed him, but
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I just look at that as like, that's kind of what we need now. But we've got who from the Packer?
Kyle Harris.
Wilson?
Nope.
Jonathan Owens.
Nope. The running back.
Brett Favre.
Like, he's still on the Packers?
Yeah, he's like a goal line running back. He's on the Packers, available for
AJ Dillon.
AJ Dillon.
AJ
Quadzilla.
Amon Green.
I want AJ Dillon so bad.
What do you guys think about Najee Harris?
No.
No. Yeah. I don't know why. I kind of like that. That shit though, right?
I don't know.
Even if nothing changes, I would expect, like, if you saw the same roster go out on week 1, I would expect the running game would be more efficient, just strictly because of scheme.
Yeah.
That's fair to say. Yeah.
I mean, they've been so effective running the ball in Detroit. I'm hoping that
we need to go to a Bears practice and pod. Put up a little chair.
Sure.
The scheme is changing.
I think we would need media passes for that, unless we went to one of the free ones.
Well, we could be like, well, we're from Chi-Town Lowdown.
We're super legit.
Yeah, we're legit.
Speaking of, do like and subscribe. I don't know. I think we're kind of running out of runway here. Is there any other talking points that you guys wanted to hit?
Nope, all good.
Nope, feels good to be back.
Yeah.
Let's get it wrapped up then. Yes, we'll be back for the Super Bowl. Obviously, given our picks there.
The big game.
Yeah, the big game. But yeah, another Bear show as well. But do like and subscribe. Who's your coach that you're most excited for here? What do you think is going to be the biggest impact moving forward in the season? Drop your comments below. But again, we'll see you guys next week and appreciate the support.